The eye is the window to the soul, and with horses, the eye is a great way to read their behavior and understand their current emotional state. A calm, happy horse tends to have a rounded eyelid and a very soft eye. The eyelid is not drawn up in a peak, and it's nice and round and almost U-shaped, and their eyes look very nice and soft while still remaining alert. So in the beginning of this video, we're going to look at a bunch of these soft, rounded eyelids and soft eyes that are indicators of a relaxed and alert horse. Some horses do have more sclera visible than others, such as this horse, but as you can see, the eyelid is still nice and soft and round. So this horse does not look particularly stressed. It is alert and it is rotating its eye. This horse also has a nice soft eyelid, rounded lid, and a very soft eye. The reason why we're focusing on eyes here is because there's a lot of subtle facial expressions horses can make, but the eye is one of the most telling and obvious ones. So learning how to differentiate between a soft, relaxed eye and a stressed eye is very important. Here we have the eyelid drawn up into a triangulated peak. This horse is concerned about something. It's showing stress in its eye. The lid is tense and pulled up, and the eye is widened. And you can see that there's wrinkling above the eyelid. It's making an almost triangular shape. Same here, we can see the lid drawn up and wrinkling above the eye and a triangulated shape of the eyelid with widening of the eye. So this is what you want to look for when you're looking for a horse who may be stressed or in pain. It doesn't need to necessarily mean that they're in an insane amount of stress, but it does mean that they're elevated in their stress level and they are concerned about something. Noticing stress earlier will help your horse to self-regulate and avoid larger reactions because you'll notice the stress as it starts to develop. This is another example of a triangulated eye of a horse who is concerned. And this is one of the things that you can notice on the Grimace scale, which is a scale that was developed to determine the likelihood a horse is in pain. A lot of the expressions that we see for pain are the same expressions as we see for stress. There's a lot of crossover. So it doesn't necessarily mean that this horse is in pain, but I would include stress as an emotional pain. This is another example of a stressed eye. You can see the clear wrinkling above the lid and the tension above the eyelid. And I want to show you as many different examples and angles as possible in this little video crash course to the horse's eye, just to give you an idea of how to start noticing this. Depending on the level of stress, the horse's eye can wrinkle and tent like this even when they just notice a stressor off in the distance and are concerned about something that they see off in the distance. It doesn't necessarily have to be an indicator of a chronic high level of stress that is super damaging to the horse. It can be fleeting moments of stress, but it's definitely something to watch. So this is an example of a more tense eye brought up into a triangulated shape, also on a horse who has more sclera visible. So some people get confused about the sclera being visible and assume that these horses are always scared and always stressed, but sometimes this is the confirmation of the eye. However, the lid being drawn up into a triangulated shape shows that this horse is less at ease than the photo I showed you before. So we're going to compare this horse where the eyelid is more rounded to the one that we just looked at. Both horses have more visible sclera, but one horse has a triangulated eyelid and the other does not. So there is a difference in a level of tension. We're going to show another example of a horse with sclera visible, and you can see that the eyelid is clearly drawn up into a triangulated shape. There's a very clear wrinkle and worry line, and the horse's eyelid is tense and their eye is wider. So there's a very big difference between this horse and the one that I just showed you with the rounded lid. And again, we have some white visible. This is not a horse that has naturally visible sclera. This is the horse's eye widening due to being uncomfortable or stressed about something, in addition to the eyelid being triangulated and the lid being raised up. And then this is another example of the white of the eye being visible due to the horse's fear level. I'm not sure the context in which these photos were taken, but this is a very concerned horse. The white is visible, and this is just a more severe example of how the eye can look when the horse is quite stressed, where they start to widen it to the point where you can see the eye white. This isn't the same thing as a horse who has visible sclera. This horse would have naturally brown eyes with no sclera visible, but the reason why you can see the white is because of how stressed the horse is. Photo comparing the eye of my client horse. These photos were taken on the same day, and this is the same horse. The top photo, you can see clear wrinkling and tension above the eyelid because he is stressed. And then in the bottom photo, you can see a much softer and more relaxed eye. This is a very great example of how the same horse can look totally different depending on how stressed they are. In the top photo, it was when he was first meeting me, and he was very scared of women because he had been beaten by a woman. So he was unsure of me, and until I built that trust, he was very concerned. At which point, once I had started to establish trust and show him that I wasn't going to do anything scary to him, his eyelid relaxed and he had a much, much softer eye. So looking at more stressed eyes, this horse is having the white visible and you can see the peak above the eye. If you could see the whole photo of this horse, you'd also notice that this horse is in draw reins and having its head and neck pulled in. This is another very stressed horse with a very clear peak above the eye and some white of the eye visible. If you could see the full photo, you'd see the amount of facial tension and body tension. Another example of a horse with a very peaked eye, very triangulated with the white visible. This horse is wearing draw reins, and you can see in the rest of the photo that his body posture is very tense. This horse is having the white visible and a very stressed, wide eye. And if you were to see the whole photo, you'd see how intense the facial tension is and how tight the nose bend is. But realistically, you can zoom in on any of these photos of just the eye, and you can tell that the horse is stressed simply by looking at the eye, such as here, where there's a very clearly triangulated, tense eyelid, very wide open eye with the sclera visible. This horse wouldn't typically have sclera visible like this in a different situation. And then we have a video of a horse with the eyelid wrinkling in real time. So the eye tells you so much. If you can learn to look at your horse's eyes and understand what they look like at resting, it'll give you a very good gauge of your horse's relaxed state versus when they start to get elevated. And you can notice the tension level of the eye as their stress level goes up. And it'll help you gauge how stressed they are, and it'll allow you to help bring them down from stress. This is an example of my horse Banksy's eye. The left photo is him when he's looking at something he's afraid of in the distance. He's showing more sclera than what he usually would show, and he has tension above the eyelid versus his regular relaxed eye with the regular amount of sclera that he has visible on his side of the face where he has more white on his face. So you can see the very clear difference between the two here. Again, the same horse, same day, different contexts. In the left photo, he was staring at flapping tarp on a round bale of hay, and he wasn't comfortable with it, as you can see. But anyways, that's your crash course to stress in horses' eyes. I hope that helped. If you're interested in watching the whole webinar that I did, as well as some of my other stress webinars on horses, the links are all down below in the description, along with the links to my store, Patreon, and more. Thank you, everybody.